What's poppin', everybody? This is the cartoon kid, Ray Rollins, your average cartoon loving homie who loves to give you his opinions on what he thinks of cartoons, man. Today, we're talking about Infinity Train, Book 3, Episode 2, The Jungle Card. Now, per usual, before I start breaking this episode down, I'm gonna have to give y'all that episode breakdown. This episode starts out where the previous one left off. And that's where Grace and Simon basically find out that they're 42 cars behind the apex. So they got to go through each individual train car to get to the apex. And their first car so happens to be the jungle car. Now, once they open up this car, Simon basically gives off a pessimistic attitude where he's like, man, we don't have our harpoon packs, we don't have any food, and most importantly, we don't have our army of kids with us. So Simon over here is having a nice pessimistic attitude. Well, it's not nice, but you know, Simon, he's the person who likes to plan ahead. And Grace basically tells him, yo, you need to stop being so pessimistic, man. Think of this as a break or a nice deserved vacation away from the apex. So they start enjoying themselves and whatnot, and they end up hearing this noise. And they think it's a knoll, which is a creation by the train, if you guys remember. And basically, they try to end up trapping this knoll, but they end up getting knocked out, and they find out that the person who was making the noise turns out to be Hazel and Tuba, who we all know from the trailers. That's the other main protagonist of Season 3. And their goal from here is to try to recruit Hazel to join the Apex, but Tuba, being her buddy, he's not, or she rather, is not having it. So that's the main premise of the episode. Now, I gotta say, my first impressions. My first initial thought is that, yo, Grace and Simon, their dynamic is good, man. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, when we seen them in Season 2 or Book 2, it's just like, at least to me, I didn't like Simon. And I sure as hell didn't like Grace, which was obviously the main plan of having them appear in Season 2. You're not supposed to like them. They're not the protagonists. And I just like how they did the switcheroo here for this season, because especially at that scene in the beginning where they're basically figuring out what's going on, the conversation between those two, you can tell that they're actual people, man. They're not these mean, heartless, ruthless people. I mean, well, you basically come to that conclusion later on in the episode. At least I did anyway. But it's just like, they're cool people. And their relationship between each other, or their friendship rather, is tightly knit. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more, but it's just nice to see that these characters can be viewed as the bad guys, because they are the bad guys. They were in Season 2. But I just really like the fact that we get to see more of them in Season 3, and an added bonus of that is that you get to see their full-fledged characters. You get to see their human side. They're not the big villains that they were in Season 2, or at least for that episode in Season 2, rather. And like I said, I'll explain that a little bit more during this review. But that's my first initial thoughts. Now, let's get on to moments. I have to say, Grace and Simon's dynamic, once again, is a tightly knit one. And what I mean by that is, everybody has that friend who they can joke on, and vice versa. You can be that friend that someone else jokes on too. And obviously in this relationship, we see that the friend who gets crapped on the most is Simon. And I gotta say, that first beginning scene, where they're basically looking through all their products, and Simon comes across Grace's pack, and he's looking in it, and he's like, okay, you got 3 toothbrushes? And he's like, 1 for me and 2 for the sneaks. And Simon's like, I don't even get 1? Come on, man. And then he's continuing looking through her pack, and he comes across some sports deodorant, and she's like, yo, that's for your ripeness, man. And he starts laughing, and she's like, oh, you think I'm joking? Basically, she's letting us know that Simon is big stanky. He up in there stanking up whatever area they're in, man. And Grace, obviously with her being a female, man, you would think she don't want to smell that ish. So she's like, yo, I got you some sports deodorant. You're going to have to be putting this on, Joe. So I find that hilarious. And it's just, as soon as she said that, I was like, yo, Grace just roasted the shit out of him, man. Come on, man. Be easy on Simon. And yeah, she roasted the hell out of him just a few seconds ago. But she sees that Simon's feeling a little down. He's a little worried. And she's like, yo, Simon, relax. We're the Apex. We're leaders of the Apex. I seen you lead a whole army of kids, man. You can be the tough general guy sometimes, but you can also be chill and laid back. So just relax a little bit. Stop being so pessimistic. We got this. And obviously, we go through the whole montage of them just enjoying themselves, and which is good. Like I said, those two little parts of the episode showcase how tight-knit Grace and Simon are. Grace can joke with Simon about how bad he stinks, but she can also make him feel happy, when he's in a low point. And it's just like the showcasing of that, man. It's just art. It's art. I love a good story. I appreciate how authors, whether it be writing a book or a TV series, cartoon, or you name it, how they portray characters and how they show how two characters are close without actually saying, hey, these guys have been best friends since so-and-so, So that's a good piece of art. I really like that. Good point for the writers, man. Good respect point for them. Now, second, we got to talk about Tuba and Hazel. I just love the fact how when Tuba and Hazel approach Grace and Simon after they end up waking up, Grace and Simon were scared out of their pants, man, because you see this big old hulking form approach you, and once they come out of the shadows, Tuba and Hazel start laughing, give them a good scare. And this is where you see Simon and Grace's manipulativeness come into play. And I gotta say, it is 100%, at least to me, disturbing. It's only disturbing because, they're trying to recruit kids, man. And it's just like, just to see the psychology at work, it's just like, damn, man, that's some crazy-ish. Simon's trying to explain the whole idea of the Apex to Hazel and Tuba, and he ends up getting a little mouthy. And Tuba's like, yo, I'm not having this. And Tuba's getting ready to attack him, and Hazel's like, yo, come on, Tuba, man, you told me there's going to be no hitting. And Tuba basically like, okay, all right, you're right. And Grace, she takes over. She's like, yo, is it okay if I speak to you alone, Hazel? And basically she convinces Tuba to let her and Simon speak to Hazel alone. And like I said, this is where the clear manipulativeness comes into play here. And to me, it's just so disturbing. It's like, wow, man, they're trying to recruit this kid to join their organization. And you see Tuba's trying to protect her, but it's just like, she's not having none of it. She wants to work with the Apex. She wants to see how cool the Apex are. And Grace is trying to convince her that the Apex is this fun little organization and trying to get her to come to their side and have a cool glowing number and whatnot. And it's just like, the kid is so easily manipulated. And seeing that just made me think like, man, the nice little warm fuzziness I had from Grace and Simon showing their closeness and their friendship is 100% gone now. These guys are some absolute monsters. And you see Tuba's over there just eating a pineapple and just 100% destructive. Tuba is going to screw some shit up. She is going to cause some absolute destruction. She has to, man, because once she finds out what they're trying to do with Hazel, man, Tuba needs to go off, okay? That's got to happen. That has to happen. But during their conversation, we find out that Simon doesn't want to bring Tuba back to the Apex headquarters. Neither does Grace, but they're like, yo, we're going to let Tuba come along, and we're going to ditch her when the time is right. And I already know something big is going to go down with that. And Tuba basically agrees. So that's the end of the episode right there. And it's just like, I got to say, once again, with Infinity Train being a continuous series where each episode picks up one right after another, some episodes, as I said in the first episode review, are going to be somewhat of a downer, or not a downer, but a setup episode, meaning that it's not going to have the same potency as somewhere near the end. It's not going to have the high intensity or anything like that. But this episode, in my opinion, was okay. It just continued the story, which was what it was supposed to do. It introduced two new characters, as well as showcased Grace and Simon's friendship and how close they are with each other, and which is good. Like, one thing I always appreciate with continuous series like this, it expands on your previous knowledge of the characters, and that's what it's supposed to do. Even though it's not a high impact episode, it serves as a continuation of the series, or of the book, or season rather. And that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to add on your previous knowledge of the characters, of the world, and all that. And it's supposed to continue the story, which it did excellently in my opinion. Now, one thing that I really enjoyed from this episode, as I said earlier, besides Grace and Simon's character development, or friendship rather, is the introduction of Hazel and Tuba. Hazel being this 100% easily manipulated, naive kid, and Tuba obviously being her protector. It's just like, man, I already know, or have the feeling at least, that Tuba, as I said earlier, is going to cause some absolute destruction. You cannot, and I know that Hazel's like, Tuba, you promised there's no hitting. Hazel, I'm sorry, sweetheart. There's going to have to be some hitting. Because seeing how Grace and Simon just try to manipulate her has me angry, okay? And you know what? And that's how it's supposed to be. Grace and Simon are supposed to be seen as the antagonists because they're the apex. Hazel and Tuba essentially are the protagonists. So obviously Grace and Simon are the bad guys. And you, and especially as the writers, and like I said, I give them huge points for this. They're going back and forth, having you feel some type of way with Grace and Simon. At least me personally, as I said earlier, they have me thinking, oh man, they're these nice people. They seem pretty cool. They're normal, you know? But then they have this one disturbing scene where they're trying to manipulate this little kid, and it's just like, oh man, I hope Tuba beats y'all ass, man. And it has me feel like that. I give them huge props for that. They can play with the viewer's emotions and have them feel whatever way they want about these characters. They can essentially, I wouldn't want to say play with the viewer's emotions, but they can control them. And that's the job of the writer. They're supposed to have the reader or the viewer feel a certain way about their characters. Like I said, for me personally in the beginning, I was like, oh man, Grace and Simon, they're normal people. They're all right people. But at the end of this episode, when they're trying to manipulate this kid, it's just like, yo, Tuba has to destroy you guys, okay? It's just like, I went from feeling somewhat positive towards them, and now I totally hate them again. So they went from protagonist to antagonist in my mind, just like that, with a snap of a finger. And huge points to the writers for that, okay? I also like how they displayed how naive Hazel is. She doesn't have a glowing number, and with her being a naive kid, Grace being absolutely manipulative is like, hey, my number's glowing. I want to show you how to get your number to grow. Showing that Grace basically accomplished step number 1 of having her recruited to the apex. Simon obviously is the pessimistic asshole, which they showed at the beginning and they were showing again later on in the episode. And him being pessimistic and super straightforward is not good for, it is good for his character, but it's going to cause him to be strongly disliked. And you've seen that repeatedly later on in the episode where he almost got attacked several times by Tuba. And obviously you see Tuba, the big gorilla, the big protective gorilla, whose job or goal basically is to look out for her friend Hazel. And you can see that she's protective because Tuba kind of knows what's going down. Like, she's never heard of the Apex, but she gets the sense that they're not good people. Obviously, as I mentioned a few times earlier, she ends up attacking Simon because he gets a little mouthy. And when Grace is like, hey, can I talk to Tuba alone for a second? Tuba's like, nah, man, I think I should stay. But regardless, Hazel ended up convincing Tuba to let her speak with Grace alone. And it's just like, I already know, as I said, and I'm going to say it one more time, something big's going to happen. As I said, this obviously isn't a high impact episode, but its purpose was to introduce 2 new characters, which I feel that it did very well, and I explained it. And I don't need to explain it again because I don't want to keep you guys here too long. The way they introduced Hazel and Tuba was absolutely perfect. They showcased that Hazel and Tuba have somewhat of a comedic sense to them by surprising Grace and Simon. They show that Hazel's naive, and they show that Tuba is that overprotecting mother or friend figure of Hazel, and she doesn't want Hazel to get hurt. And also, as I said repeatedly, and I'll say it one more time, they showcase Grace and Simon's close friendship, but I also like how they had you switch from liking them, at least for me personally, I switched from liking them to hating them just in that single episode. Huge respect points for the writers on that. This wasn't a high impact episode, but it served as a nice continuing episode of the book. So I'm going to have to hit this one with a nice 7.5 out of 10, man. Nothing too major, wasn't high impact, but it served as a good, interesting introduction to Hazel and Tuba, which it was supposed to be. So, this has been my review for Season 3 or Book 3 of Infinity Train, Episode 2, The Jungle Car, I give this episode a nice 7.5 out of 10, man. This is the cartoon kid, Ray Rollins, your average cartoon loving homie. And this entire week, we're going to be talking about Infinity Train Season 3. So if you want to see more of my opinions, man, hit that subscribe button and check out other past videos of Infinity Train that I did. That'll be popping up here on your screen in a minute, man. Tell me what you think of this episode. Tell me if you liked it. Tell me if you hate it. Tell me what you would rate it. And tell me what was your first idea or thoughts when you saw Hazel and Tuba, man, down in the comments box below. Until then, I will see y'all when I see y'all. Peace out, everybody.